So, welcome to the Python People podcast, where I'm joined by this week's guest, Karthik Subramanian, founder of Celeredge, an innovative AI platform to write reports and presentations on demand. So, really interested to hear a little bit more about your work there today, Karthik. But how are you doing? You well?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on this podcast.
No worries at all. So, yeah, you've obviously had I think, a very impressive career in tech to date. Obviously, you founded Celeredge, so I'd be really interested to hear a little bit more about the work you've done there. But prior to that, you've had technical positions at companies like Yahoo, Tibco, Snaplogic, Sky, to name a few.
So, yeah, Celeredge is actually something where it's a very interesting problem for me to solve. We are trying to become the new operating system for consulting, and consulting by nature is actually very horizontal. It can span multiple industries. So for me, the problem is actually can be from audit, or it can be from management consultancies, or it can be from a completely different place. So the problems are very varied, and like what we are trying to do is actually help consultants get through their business workflow faster and produce results and deliver value to their customers. So
Okay.
essentially, like a lot of these consultants, they end up building reports and presentations and whatnot. So our idea is to actually like help the consultants build these things fast and in a click of a button. Yeah.
Cool. And how would you interact with it? Is it kind of a prompt-based LLM fashion service?
Yeah, so we have a very chat GPT style, like chat interface to interact with this. And well, maybe in future there's actually scope to build a specialized UI which will drive these things. But for now, it's a very generic chat interface, which actually lets the consultant interact with the platform and get the deliverables fast.
Great. And it sounds like a great product and a great idea. And it's what I love about AI business ideas that I can see really working is it's tackling a very specific problem, adding a lot of value. And I guess really the world of consulting obviously is huge, and it's like a global entity. So if you can kind of help every single consultant boost their productivity, get their reports, their ideas out to customers quicker, it's exactly the kind of use case where AI has a huge amount of value to offer, isn't it?
Yeah, so interestingly, we are engaging currently with a new generation consulting organization who is actually pretty new, like less than a year old. And since they are building a new consultancy in the age of AI, they want their practices to be AI first. So
Right.
they are actually going to use Celeridge as the base layer, and like we will power all the junior analyst kind of role related things on the Celeridge layer, and they will only hire like senior consultants to actually do very specific work for the customers. So this way they can scale pretty fast and serve more customers. Yeah.
Yeah, great idea. And I love the idea it's sort of aimed at the junior layer to kind of boost their productivity and I guess, like I say, increase their output. So yeah, fantastic idea. I can see it working very well. A lot of experience to bring to bear today. So yeah, before we get into it, tell us a bit about yourself. You know, where did it all start for you in tech, and talk us through your career to date, if you'd be so kind.
Oh yeah, sure. So by like when I started, I did my undergrad in electrical and electronics. I wasn't really like into computer science at that point, but like when I started picking up a few electives in computer science, that's when I realized, okay, like computer science is my calling, if you will. That's how I got started on computer science, and from there, I started getting more and more into computers, and then did my master's at State University of New York, and after that, I started working in the Silicon Valley for Yahoo, and then I realized the pace of the product development at like large enterprises. It's actually a little bit slower for my liking, so I ended up leaving Yahoo, and I went to other places, and finally I found the right place, which was a startup. So early stage startup is what I started enjoying more and more. And what happened was spent quite a bit of time in the startup world, and then I realized I like building products from scratch, ground up, and scaling them, and getting them into the hands of like many customers. So, and that's when I found my other calling, which was actually like working on startups and like building products from ground up. So yeah, that's my brief journey from beginning with my undergrad all the way to like Silicon Valley. And
Cool. Good stuff. Well, let's hear a little bit more about Celeredge in a moment, but interested just to pick your brains on the Silicon Valley piece, because it's obviously for a lot of people the kind of holy Shangri-La of tech, and a lot of people keen to get out there and get some exposure. But how did you find the whole experience of being in Silicon Valley?
um, so it was interesting because I was a new grad coming out of my master's and going to a like large company like Yahoo. So one thing I didn't realize is you can quickly get lost in a lot of people and what's happening in such a big organization. So what I struggled to understand was like what kind of impact am I making in the org, and the product that I was building, how it's actually used by the customers, um, like what kind of value am I adding. So that was a little bit hard for me to understand since it was such a big company. So I think like one advice there is it may be harder for you when you begin. So best thing to do would be to find a great mentor to work with, who can help you understand these things and help you navigate all these nuances and like everything around that comes with a large enterprise. So yeah, so it was great experience there. Got a exposure to like a lot of new tech, like a lot of amazing technologists and like great minds. Like Yahoo those days, they had like a big research lab, and like it was like a very inspiring thing in the valley. Yeah, so Silicon Valley is actually a world away from a lot of other places. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
bet. I bet. Interesting. Okay, that's cool. And I guess it took that experience to realize that perhaps you are better suited to the startup world, and you love the buzz of the fast pace and building products. And really interested to hear a bit about Celeredge. So I guess with any startup, there's sort of multiple aspects at play, aren't there? There's the mental and kind of emotional roller coaster that entrepreneurship makes you ride, and what that entails, but also there's the actual challenge of building the product or the service itself as well from the ground up. So keen to pick your brains on both aspects, if I may. But yeah, let's start with that kind of when you took the decision. Talk me through the decision making process, and I guess the kind of mental and emotional journey that it takes to found a business.
Sure, yeah. So my first startup of my own was here in London. So I left Silicon Valley and moved back here to London, and um, then like the idea was actually to actually use this opportunity to travel around Europe and see more places. So I always enjoyed travel, so wanted to take this opportunity to do that. And when I was here, I realized, like, again, working for a large company, I wasn't enjoying as much as working for a startup. So that's when it struck me, yeah, like I can go work for a startup, or I can find some interesting problems to work on of my own. And what I did was I took some time in between, and like I quit my job. Took almost like 10 months. I was traveling all over Europe. I visited maybe like 20 countries or something like that. And the whole family enjoyed it because the kids were small, and not much to do with schooling and things. They were in nursery. So we took the opportunity to travel quite a bit. And then when I came back, I decided, okay, like I'm gonna get started on a new venture of my own. So um, the thing is like it's very exciting in the beginning. So like once you actually know what you're going to work on, you are heads down and like you're deep in the problem, trying to actually build a product and solve the problems and whatnot. But two things. First is you need to know what problem you're going to solve.
Mm.
So like you need to solve a real problem that customers will pay for, and like real pain point that anyone has. They should be willing to pay for that. So that is a interesting challenge, because like one is you can get that from experience, like maybe in your past company when you were working, you recognize some problems that you can solve better or things like that. Or the other one is actually the hard way, which is like you try something and you take it to market and it doesn't work. Then you go back to the whiteboard and try and tweak it or rebuild pieces of it. So I think it's a great exercise to actually do that introspection and go back to the whiteboard and do things. But also it can be exhausting, because like if you don't have the right problem to solve, then you're always looking for the problem. So that you need to actually get past that and actually start delivering value.
Mm.
That's when it becomes even more exciting, and that will actually push you to like keep going.
Mm.
So that can be a very challenging thing to first land on the right problem to solve.
Yeah.
That's yeah, that's mentally bit exhausting as well, if you think about it. And if you have good co-founders that you are working with, it's
Mm.
actually like going to help you tremendously, because like you have one another person that you can always bounce your ideas off, and
Yeah.
you're sharing your thoughts and like you're getting feedback immediately. It's not like a solo entrepreneur who is actually thinking on his own, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of really great points there. I think, the piece about actually understanding the problem you're solving, it sounds quite a logical thing, but I see a lot of businesses that it's too complicated and there's too many things they're trying to do at once. And actually, let's really focus in on a simple problem and one that creates value. And I think the other point you mentioned, which is a really good one, is actually one that, it's a problem. Is somebody prepared to pay for it to be solved?
yeah,
Because that's the other thing. A lot of people think I've got this great product, and they don't ever really do the kind of market due diligence or testing as to the
yeah,
feedback as to whether people will actually buy it and pay for it, which I think is great. And yeah, lastly, the support network piece. I think that's huge, isn't it? It's no matter how well any startup's going, you'll always have doubts. You'll always have those moments where, just like you said, even just talking to somebody and sort of sharing perspective, let alone kind of bouncing your ideas off and get some value back, but having those people that can kind of pick you up and keep you on a straight line is massively important, isn't it?
yeah. And like another way to look at it is actually like you can even find some like-minded community where you can go, and like even co-working space works great, because like you will be sitting in the middle of like other entrepreneurs just like you,
Mm.
and that actually is a wonderful community. Like you can actually talk to them and you will see like a lot of people are solving very interesting problems. Like some of them like will give you inspiration like how to go about things, and like also like they will, some of them are like really really interesting problems that you haven't even thought about. So like and there may be parallels that you can actually like take for your own inspiration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally agree. Cool. Well, let's talk a bit about building a product then, because it's something that so many companies, obviously, whenever you are in a startup, you're either building a service or a product. Unless you're part of an M&A event, or buying another company, you're essentially starting something from scratch, right? So, talk us through your experience of building products from 0 to 1 and scaling them. And yeah, just what is your approach really to kind of bring something to life from the ground up?
Sure. Yeah. So like by doing the same product building exercise from ground up like a few times, what I've realized is there are pieces that you have to automate on day one. There is no other way around it, because like in the early days, you'll be building something that you want to test fast. And if your like deployment cycle takes like 1 hour, and you have to do everything manually, that's actually time wasted in doing something that's not adding value at that particular point of time.
Yeah.
So like day one, try and invest in something that's actually like very easy to automate. Like, and another thing I would definitely recommend is like go with some proven technology, right? So it's always very exciting to pick something that's very niche and new. Like you may learn something very cool. But in the long run, if you are thinking of building a product that will scale for like thousands or even millions of users, then you have to think about like, is that a proven technology? And also like if you're scaling a company, you will need others to come in and contribute. So if it is a niche language or niche technology, like it's hard to find talent who can come in and help you build the product.
Great point.
Yeah. So that's one thing I will always recommend. Like try and find the pieces that you can automate right away, like day one. For example, like if I have to like build a new product, first thing I'll invest in is actually like how do I get my code to build and create a Docker image. So that's day one task for me. And then
Okay.
how will I actually deploy this, like AWS or whatever is the technology
Yeah.
like provider you use, like find a way to actually automate that as well. Like you can actually pull the Docker images automatically and like refresh it whenever a new image is available. So those kind of small automation actually goes a really long way in saving you a lot of time. So probably I would have like spent like maybe like hours and hours or even months doing that, like in the process of building a new product that I have saved by doing the small thing.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and I guess that's where your background, I guess, as a technologist and an engineer, really comes through at the fore, because you are looking at it from a perspective of, yes, I'm building a technical solution here, but how am I going to deploy it? And like you say, I think the biggest thing for any startup in the early days is how do I create time efficiencies? Because there's only you're limited resources, limited money very often, and you have to do the most you can with the time that you have. And I think there's often, a lot of founders that maybe haven't come from that kind of tech background in the past that have great idea for great people skills, great idea for a concept, great idea for a business. But in terms of actuating that and getting out into the real world, I think there's a lot of time and effort wasted. And I guess you're always looking at it from a very kind of logical, pragmatic perspective of, an end-to-end kind of solution. And I think that's, obviously a great trait to have as a technology founder.
Yeah, definitely. You need to look at it in a like very holistic way, so that like you build product for today as well as for tomorrow. So that's the point of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So once you've, I guess, decided on your technology, decided how you're going to deploy it, you've worked out the areas that you can automate. What sort of next for you? Where do you go in your thought process as to how do you ensure it's on the right track and scalable?
Yeah, so I think like one thing to keep in mind is actually like the customer problem, like what you're trying to solve, right? So that should be your North Star. And like whatever you do, like you are building towards that. So like you can like have an amazing product, but if it actually doesn't take you towards that, then you're not actually doing justice to whatever you're building. So um, the way to look at it is actually I take the customer problem and think about like, okay, like if the customer has to solve this problem, like how will I get the customer to like come on my platform and do all these things and get his answer or like solve this. And what happens in the course is actually like you can find easy ways to do it or you can find a hard way to do it. So the way to look at it is actually like what is the customer problem you're trying to solve and work your way back from there. So like if you're trying to solve an e-commerce problem, then okay, like how do I get there? Like you define your building blocks and you actually say like, okay, like I'll have to store something in the database and I'll have to actually like build a few services which will do very specific things. And it helps me to think in this way because like that naturally creates a separation and helps me build different services which will do very specific things.
Mm.
And if you are actually trying to build something that's actually does everything in one go, I mean, like in the early days, it may be okay, but like when you are thinking of scaling, at that point, it becomes harder. And
Yeah.
like when you bring more people on to work on it,
Mm.
so it's kind of hard to actually like separate that spaghetti and like get it also working properly. But
Yeah.
that's where the automation really helps. Like if you have pieces that you have already automated, so it's easy to create these smaller services which will automatically work with your architecture. So
Mm. Yeah. Great point. And when you talk about scalability, I guess there's two elements to that, isn't there? There's the scalability from a technology perspective. Is it actually scalable? Obviously through various cloud services, etc. But then there's a scalability from a human resources perspective as well. And just interested to get your perspective. What are the trigger points for you as to getting a product to a certain place where you think actually, right, we need to bring people on board now. We need to bolster out the team to allow that next layer of scale. What does that look like for you?
So I think like what happens is like there is a point in time where you are actually like trying to build new features or go into meetings with customers or meet with investors. So there's like many things happening at one point in your startup journey. And at that point, when you're not able to do enough of any of these, then you are stretched thin. Like you don't have capacity to actually go into investor meetings in the right frame of mind, or even build the features that you want to build for customers. And
Mm.
like, so at that point, it makes sense to actually like find right people to come in and pick up the things that you can offload.
Yeah.
And that's where like the scaling the team and everything happens at that point. And like and also like it gives you a time to actually think about how you want to build a team and what should be the culture and things. Culture usually typically comes from like how you operate. It's some like, I mean, I have seen companies where they write things on the wall saying this is our culture and things, but in reality, like people may or may not follow that.
Mm.
So culture is
Totally.
something that's defined by people who actually are in the company and like the way
Absolutely.
they operate and way they live through the whole thing. So
Yeah.
that's the exact point at which you need to pay attention to, like, okay, like what kind of company culture are you going to build?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you going to give freedom to execute? And I would say like early days, like it's okay to like make mistakes and like learn from it and move on, because that has always been a great thing for me. Like whenever I make a mistake, I take the opportunity to just learn from it and move on, because like there's never a good answer for everything in life. So like you either find the right answer or something that works for you, and then you just keep moving. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and that's such an important part of entrepreneurship, isn't it? You've got to be prepared to take the hits and move on, because fail over and over again, but you've got to reframe it in a way. Well, exactly like you said, you've got to work out, well, that didn't work, so what will work, and think about the solution in a different way. So that's a great point. But we've talked about products quite a bit now, and just interested to get your take on it. And again, one of the things that's I think very refreshing as a founder of a business is that you're talking a lot about product, and you've come from this technology background. You're obviously clearly a very strong engineer. You understand the processes that are involved in software engineering and cloud deployment and so on and so forth. But the world of certainly what we've seen over the last few years is the world of software development, software engineering, and products are aligning very much in a lot of businesses. Product professionals, product teams, and technical teams, coming together. I'll compare it to when I started in recruitment like 20 years ago, and there was a software developer, and you were lucky if you had like a BA or a product, I guess there were project managers at the time, and it was very kind of siloed still in terms of that communication link between product and technology. How do you see that journey has evolved, and kind of how do you see it kind of needing to evolve moving forward in terms of the skill sets that people might need to acquire, to kind of keep that link strong and moving forward?
Sure. So the the current development in AI and vibe coding has completely changed the landscape. So like if you're a product manager, you used to be like, okay, like I'll go talk to customers, I'll find some problem, or like I'll find the features for the roadmap and I'll bring it in, and I'll actually like write up something about it and then hand over to the engineering teams to like prioritize and work. That's not the case anymore, because like those were the like uh, pre AI and pre vibe coding days. And now like if you look in Valley, like a lot of companies, what they do is like the product managers are expected to actually like go find whatever is the problem area the customers are actually facing, and then like come back and use that information to actually do a little bit of vibe coding to actually find the solution, or like create a smaller version of the solution
Yeah.
and then actually show it, instead of actually like writing up about it. Like you show it to the engineering teams to say that, okay, this is exactly what the customer is facing and this is how you solve it. As a product manager, this is how I have done it, and you as an engineering team take this and make it scalable and make it production ready for our customers. So
Nice. So you place a lot of emphasis on the product world now needing to be more au fait technically, and actually understanding how you can get a working prototype or something out to people to see.
yeah, like all these new generation startups like Lovable and all these tools, they have made it really simple to actually like get something built in no time. So
Yeah.
it's just like you write some prompts to actually like try and solve these problems, and then like once it's ready, like yeah, you can show it.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it, when you think
Yeah.
about, just even that really, I guess, has peaked in the last 18 months, isn't it? 2 years really for it.
Yeah.
And it's I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday, and I was going to look at the name of the person who created the theory, but it's the theory of how technology exponentially evolves, and the speed. It's like it's something like twice as quick in half the time, and that's the way that technology evolution is going. I'll find that out for the next episode. I think it's very apt. Cool. So we've spoken quite a bit about your approach, and I can see how a lot of what you're talking about makes absolute sense. As a founder of a business, I guess at some point when you start to scale your company, you start to hire, and you spoke a lot about culture. Interested to get your thoughts as a leader. What kind of culture do you feel is right that you would want to incorporate into Celeredge, and what kind of culture do you feel businesses need to create in this day and age to allow that, especially retention, but also productivity and scale? What do you feel are some of the most important traits as a leader that you can demonstrate that would build that culture?
So it used to be like pre-COVID days, like a lot of people, they went into workplace and like for whatever reason, like either for the lack of remote work options, or for other reasons, they ended up going into workplace, and like you shared the same space um, over like long hours, like especially in startup world, like you will be sitting next to your peers and your team like for quite some time, and they'll all be part of the same journey. But like after COVID, things have changed significantly, and people have um, more and more people choose to do remote work as opposed to like going into work. So like you have to rethink how you want to actually have that shared experience
Yeah,
in this post-COVID world.
absolutely.
And that means like you can use like video conferencing tools and whatnot to actually like and get people to actually like share their workspace and like do some peer programming and things, so that like you can understand how the other person works, as well as you can help them and like get the collaboration going. So for me, like personally, when building the startup, like the early days are very important and very crucial for actually like building this trust and like building a team that's actually like willing to watch each other's back and like pick up the pieces that if someone is not available and things like that. So like early days, yeah, like you can call yourself a software engineer, but at the end of the day, you'll end up doing like a lot of different things. Like
Mm.
I remember in my early days at Snaplogic, I have done like a little bit of customer facing things as well, like going to meetings with customers, doing somewhat like a sales engineering role as well. So that happens a lot in early startup days. So I think if you have a team that's actually like pretty flexible, very open to actually like not working on defined problems, like if they are open to handling uncertain problems, that's I think the best kind of people that you can have for a startup. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So do you feel it's when you're starting to bring in that first wave of people to help scale out the business, do you feel, is it a different type of skill, different type of role profile and sort of personality characteristics that you would look for then versus maybe where you are a year or two down the line once the team's a bit more established?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, because like what happens is like in the early days, like you need a little bit more generalists who can actually like tackle many different problems. But when you actually like have a bit more stable product and your like your architecture has settled a bit and like your product roadmap has settled a bit, then you can define, okay, these are the special technologies that I want, like the specific technologies I want. And the yes, generalists will work even at that point, but like you may be okay to go for like a specific skill set at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And the piece you mentioned there about AI, I guess, revolutionizing everything. But in particular, quite keen to get your brains on, do you feel it's changed your perspective as a founder as to the type of traits and attributes that you look for in people to hire now versus maybe where we were like 5 years ago? What
Yeah.
do you feel are some of the kind of, really important traits that we have now in this new AI world that you would probably assess maybe higher today than you did 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think in the past people will be like bit like bit too apprehensive about uh, like if someone opens a different tab or like during a like interview. So like there was a time when that was seen as a not a great thing to do in an interview, but like these days, like I would say actually like go to the other extreme and say that if I can find someone who knows how to actually like use all these AI coding tools, like for example, Copilot, GitHub Copilot, or all those tools, then it's actually adding more value. And like I can find an engineer who can actually solve a problem in like 2 days as opposed to 10 days because he knows how to use a AI
Mm,
coding tool.
yeah.
So I would specifically have a round in the interview to actually test for that, because
Okay.
like that's more and more these tools are unavoidable, and like
Mm.
it's better to embrace it and like make it part of your workflow and the coding style and whatnot, right?
I totally agree with you. And I guess playing devil's advocate, how do you know? So when you work with an LLM or any kind of, AI productivity tool, like you say, it increases the productivity of that person, to n-fold when they know how to use it in the right way. How do you see, because this is a conversation I have quite a lot with clients at the moment, and it is around the interview process and what skills you're assessing in the interview process. And the point you mentioned there about, these tech tests that exist where you can't click off browser, otherwise you fail the test. Because I guess at some point, well, whatever the output of an LLM, you still need to be able to assess its validity. And at some point, there is still an importance of knowing the software engineering fundamentals and, being able to interpret that code in a certain way. So how do you feel that because I also agree with you, it's like, the new wave of grads coming into the market now are going to be probably infinitely more productive because they've grown up in this world of AI tooling and they can use them all, really, really well. But do you feel there's an element of or a danger of people not really understanding what sits behind the output of an LLM unless they've got that sort of further fundamental software engineering knowledge? And how do you assess that in an interview process? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think that's a great question, because like the new generation of engineers who are coming in the market, they're actually gonna have little less experience in actually dealing with production issues and whatnot, because like in this day of AI tools and everything, like your software is built for you in certain ways, and like you spend time just integrating that pieces into your existing product. And what happens when you deploy that and it doesn't work, right? So it, it it is really, really important that they understand like how to debug through things and how to actually take it to production, and how to actually, that's where the mentorship and everything comes into play. And like that's an important thing for them to get educated on, and that only happens by experience, by working with experienced mentors and experienced technologists. So if I'm bringing a new grad into the organization, one of the first thing I'm going to do is actually like pair them up with a senior engineer who can actually like help them understand these nuances, how to take things into production, and like what happens if things break in production, like how do you roll back things. And the AI tools are not going to teach you all that. So like that's where the human connection and mentorship really is going to help.
Nice. I think that's a great approach. Yeah, to you rely on the human element of what it is to be a senior engineer and be able to share those experiences with more junior people, because I guess there is this sort of air gap I feel that's being created at the moment of, even if you've done a software engineering degree at university, you're still learning about everything in theory and in the abstract. And, if you're kind of then entering into a world of production software engineering where everything's done through AI tools, there's this area of, like, say, experience, isn't it, really, of having been there, done that, got the t-shirt, seeing when something went wrong. And I think you definitely still need that sort of touch point of a more senior person to really help embed those fundamentals, to create the right level of software engineering until we get to the point where AI writes everything, better than we would, which we're probably not far away, but it is a really interesting kind of conversation at the moment. And as I say, certainly with a lot of our clients, just trying to, I suppose, tailor their interview processes to ensure they are getting the right talent rather than somebody that, can use these tools in the right way, but is lacking in the kind of depth and the fundamentals that we spoke about. But no, really, I think that's a really great approach. What are you, and this is a very open question, I appreciate, but we've obviously spoken quite a bit about AI, but what are you most excited about in the world of AI moving forward? Have you kind of seen any particular use cases or examples of things, or just any trends that you find particularly exciting?
There are a lot of interesting things that's coming up, and like everyone's moving or like trying to build towards AGI, and that's like something that's in the horizon. Like in some ways, I would even argue that we have AGI in some sense, because like if you look at like 10 years back what AI could do, and if you look at it today, people like, if you bring a person from 10 years back and show him what we have done now, he may think, oh, okay, you have achieved AGI. That's the kind of world we live in. And like it's going to get even better and better. Like, and another thing to look forward to is actually like all these AI tools and LLMs and everything. The price is going to come down because like that's the next dimension on which companies will compete. So when that happens, like you'll see more and more products integrate and use AI, and like there's going to be a convergence of like you can have like AI tool which does many different things, like for example, it can do CRM functions, it can do like customer support functions, whatnot. So everything can, like, we are already seeing that in this world with like MCP servers and like seamless integration and whatnots, right? So it's going to get even better and like very close coupling of all these tools and technologies.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I'm fascinated by the AGI conversation, because I guess it sort of, in the same way that we use the term AI at the moment. I mean, really, I guess what we were referring to is LLMs, isn't it? And kind of the main the sort of worldwide adoption of LLMs is this new wave of AI. But I guess it's, how do you actually define AGI? Do you know what I mean? And I guess it's a bit like, TDD, isn't it? Write the test first, and then kind of build up towards that. And it's the same thing in my mind of, how do we quantify AGI? So we kind of need to understand, well, what is it that we actually define and classify as AGI? And, are we actually working towards that? And I suppose the bigger question is, do you feel that LLMs and kind of transformer-based architecture is the way we're going to get there? Or do you feel there needs to be kind of a fundamental shift towards a different type of architecture to get to this place of what we perceive as AGI?
I think like this is a wonderful architecture and it has brought us this far, but like there are other things to look forward to. And like, for example, like we don't know what's going to happen when quantum computing becomes mainstream, and like how does that affect all like our way of thinking around like all the machine learning algorithms and whatnot, right? So there are so many different things that we haven't yet thought about. So like when you talk about AGI, like if there's a computer which can completely replace human in the decision making process and it can act on its own, and that's the point where I would say like we have achieved AGI. So in some ways, like if you look at some of the business workflow, this is already happening. But like if you actually combine all these things across different walks of life, that's when it gets even more powerful. Like you already have like bits and pieces of it, like LLMs can integrate with computer use tools, like it can do a little bit of RPA kind of work, and like it can go click on things, and like it can open websites for you and whatnot, right? So yeah, and then you bring in robotics into it, and then like if you think about like LLMs, which actually does all this decision making, and it can actually feed some of the back into like robotics as well, like and it can drive them to do things for you. Then think about all those things that can like power everything around here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really key point that you've touched on, isn't it? And I think it is when we tend to, with all technology, I guess, and I'm probably going to say this word wrong, I'll say it slowly, anthropomorphize, everything, and we try and turn it into human element, don't we? And like you say, robotics is that natural kind of next stage I see, as like, being able to put that level of intelligence in the physical entity that we relate to or identify maybe as slightly more human than looking at some words on a screen, and that kind of thing. But I think the point you mentioned is across, it's one of the things that we're still, I think, far away from with LLMs, is the account for context, and how humans, we exist on multiple planes simultaneously, a business problem, but also social interaction and emotional elements as well. And I still think we're obviously not quite at that point yet. Who knows where it will get to, but when we start to bring all of those things together into some kind of entity that is perceived as relatively human, I think, I agree with you, that's the point at which we kind of get to a very scary AGI place.
I think that's the singularity everyone wants to talk about, right?
Yeah. That's it. Perfect. Well, look, Karthik, really enjoyed the conversation today. Great to hear a bit more about your journey so far, and the great work you're doing at Celeredge, and your approach to building products. Huge amount of value shared. I like to draw to a close every episode by asking the same question, if you would care to indulge me, which is, what would you say is your one favorite piece of advice that you've ever received throughout your career, or your personal life, that sticks with you on the journey, that you pass on to your fellow human?
One thing I always like, this is a great piece of advice I got early in my career, which is actually like, if you make a mistake, don't worry about it. Just like own your mistake, and then like find a way to improve and keep moving. So I think that's something that has guided me throughout, and it has turned out pretty well for me. So
Yeah.
that's what I will pass on. Yeah.
Great piece of advice. I think one not only that gears you up for a successful journey as an entrepreneur, but also one that you could adopt in any context of life, really, isn't it? And to be successful and own it and not worry about it. Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you very much for coming in. Really enjoyed our conversation. Do stay in touch, and I wish you all the very best for Celeredge. Come back and have another chat with us at some point in future. Would love to catch up again.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on this podcast.
Subscribe today and never miss an episode.